For those that don't know
Yep.
who you are, that have been living under a rock,
Yep.
can you please tell the people who Andrew Tate is?
Okay, well, I've lived an eclectic life, right? So I've lived many different lives. I like to think the reason I'm so wise is because I've lived 1,000 human years. So I've done a lot of different things. I've been broke. I've been rich. I was a professional athlete. I was a webcam pimp. I've done it all. So I'll give you the very, very short version of my life story. My father was the greatest black chess player in history. He was a master of the game. So when I was growing up from a very young age, from the age of around 3, I was training to become a chess grandmaster. I was on track to be a chess grandmaster by the age of around 12. When I was 5, I became the state chess champion for Indiana in the under 16s. I was the youngest to ever win it. I remember I was 5 years old. When you're 5 and you're playing a 16-year-old, that's scary, right? I'm sitting my ass at 5, and there's some big 16-year-old there. And I remember when I beat him, he cried. So I became state chess champion age 5, and I was trained to become a chess grandmaster. So that was that. And then we were growing up. I was in sleepy little Goshen, Indiana. My mother and father split up. My mother was English, so we all went back to England. I was around 11. And in England, there's no chess, not like in America, right? And I also lost my coach because my dad stayed here. So I had a few sleepy years. I was in school or whatever, and then I decided I wanted to replace chess with something. And to me, the closest possible fit I could find was fighting. People say, how can you go from chess, which is geeky, to getting in the cage and smashing someone's face in? But to me, they're exactly the same thing, right? In most sports, there's a degree of luck. Like in poker, I don't care how good, listen, all you poker players, you all fucking, I play poker. I don't care how good you are. If every single hand you get is trash, you're going to lose.
Yep.
And if you keep getting pocket aces, you're going to win, right?
Yep.
So there's a degree of luck.
Facts.
Or if you play a team sport, your team can have a good day or a bad day, and that'll affect how the outcome of the game, regardless of how you performed, right? So I wanted something just like chess, where there's no luck. It's just me, one-on-one, brutal, war. I wanted to hurt someone. I wanted to make someone else cry like that 16-year-old bitch cried. So I thought, I might as well learn to start punching people in the face. So I started training. Kickboxing is what I started doing. I had 5 cage fights, and then I was offered a contract for the largest kickboxing organization in Holland, and they were the kings of kickboxing at the time, and they paid more than MMA, and I needed to pay the bills. So I signed up to kickboxing. I gave up MMA, and I became 4-time kickboxing world champion. Best in the world for a long time, 87 fights, been everywhere, done everything, and then fighting was doing well, but the problem was with kickboxing, it's not boxing, right? So even though I was the world champion, I mean, I had money, but I didn't have money.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like I was getting, let's say, $100,000 a fight, but I was fighting twice a year, $200,000 a year, pay your taxes and stuff. You're not balling.
Yeah.
You're not
and then
balling.
you got to pay out your promoter.
And then you got to pay your
everybody too.
promoter 20%, and there's no, and the lifestyle's boring, right? Because all you do is train. I mean, I was still smashing through women, of course, because I always found that I was pretty good at that, and it was relatively cheap. But I woke up one day and thought, I give this 6 hours of energy a day. 6 hours of my life a day is dedicated to kicking the shit out of people. I'm 4-time world champion. Is becoming 5-time world champion going to really improve my life? Probably not.
Right.
So I'm going to take all that energy and dedicate it towards getting rich. And through a crazy series of events, I ended up owning a webcam studio.
Hey.
I ended up owning a webcam studio and became a multimillionaire. And here I am now. I'm officially an ultra high net worth individual in excess of 30 million. So I gave up fighting to get rich. And now I'm rich. Islam fixes a lot of the problems that men are currently facing.
Yeah.
The problems we're discussing on this show, Islam fixes all of them, right? That's the first thing about Islam. And I'm not a Muslim, right? If I had to choose a religion, I would, because I live in an Orthodox Christian country, I go to the Orthodox Christian church. I donate $20,000 a month to the church in the country I live in. The church in Romania is very powerful, and I like having church friends. So I give them a lot of money, right? So I would guess I'm an Orthodox Christian. But if I had to bet on one religion as if I were betting on the stock market for the future, you have to bet on Islam. Because Muslims are intolerant. And I'm not saying that disrespectfully, because if you're tolerant of everything, then you stand for nothing.
Yeah.
Facts.
Christians are so tolerant now. You don't believe it. They have gay pastors that I'm not even anti-gay, but if the book says don't have, like, what do you believe in now?
Right, yeah.
If you're tolerant of everything, you stand for nothing. I can walk through London with a t-shirt saying Jesus is gay and nothing will happen to me. If I did the same thing with the Islamic prophet, I'd be dead before I got to the end of the street.
Boom.
That's how much they believe and respect. And I respect people who stick up for what they believe in.
Yeah.
It's not even about me believing in it. I respect them because they believe and they will defend. Muslims are the only people who will defend their religion. They will defend their beliefs. They refuse to be mocked. They refuse to be insulted. And I respect that about them. I respect that. That's an amazing thing about them, right? And the third point is, and I've been all around the world, some of the best countries in the world today are the first world Muslim nations.
Yeah.
Qatar, you can go to Qatar, you can fall asleep with $1 million on your lap in the middle of the street. Nothing's going to happen to you.
Saudi Arabia as
you
well.
You can go to Saudi, nothing will happen to you. You can go to Dubai, UAE, nothing's going to happen to you.
They leave their cars parked with the keys inside.
It's so safe.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
It's so safe. Women, everyone's married. Every woman obeys her husband. Every single woman has 4, 5, 6 kids. Big families. All the things we're talking about, all the problems we have here, right? They've got none of that. None of it. Because of Islam. Islam keeps society in the role where women obey their man. Women have children. Women have big families. Women are exceptionally happy to do so.
Yes.
Before some Western girl comes in here and runs her mouth, the Islamic women are happier than any you're going to see in the club tonight.
They're very true.
They're happy. Society is functioning. Their population is growing because in most Western countries, the population is declining.
Yep. Tim Cass was talking about it today. I was talking. We were
2 people have 1
Yeah.
kid. Doesn't work. Doesn't work, right? 2 people need to have 3.1 kids because people die, right? People die prematurely, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
So we have population problems in the West. They have none of the population problems. Society is functioning. And that's what society is. Society starts at the smallest possible group. You have families, and families make a street, and that street makes a village, and that village makes a town, that town makes a city, and that city makes a country. So if it's broken at the very fundamental level, if its family level's broken, then it's broken the whole way up.
Yep.
And that's what's happened in the West. And the first world Islamic countries have none of those problems. So if you're going to talk about a belief system that fixes issues, you need to go to Islam.
And I will say this
that
too.
will fix everything. But I just have absolute, even though I wouldn't identify as Muslim, I have absolute respect for the ideology, respect for the mentality, respect for the warrior aspect of it. I respect it.
They don't play.
They don't play. You can't insult their shit. But you can insult the church all day. You can make fun of it. There's a show on Netflix about a gay Jesus. That's a joke, right? Ha, ha, ha. And what do the Christians do? Nothing.
Yeah.
Christianity is a dead religion. If you're a Christian, and I'm saying this as a Christian myself, Christianity is a dead religion which is confined to the history books. It's dying out. Your own Pope, the Pope goes up there and talks LGBTQ shit now.
That's crazy.
It is over.
That's
you don't
crazy.
stand for anything. You don't believe in anything. You have no boundaries. You're walked on. You're mocked. The whole thing is a joke. Being a Christian now is nothing more than advertising. You're a loser. It's a losing religion because you've lost to Islam.
Respect for it. I have a massive respect for Islam because they have principles which they refuse to bend on. And we live in a world now where every single principle is being constantly bent and broken. Yeah. And I like to see a fundamental, or I like to see a mental model which is rigid. Yeah. There's nothing left rigid anymore. The law isn't rigid. Christianity isn't rigid. Like the only thing you can sit there and say they will not bend or they will not break is Islam. So I have absolute respect for them because it's just a masculine imperative. It's just a masculine mindset to have. And as a man, I respect people who say what they mean what they say. Those are the rules. Oh, you don't like it? Tough. And besides Islam, there's not much of that left in the world now. Yeah. Now everything's just bending and breaking and they're just making it up. Yeah. Like I think Christianity is a joke. I think it's a joke of a religion. If someone were to ask me my religion, I would have to say, if I was to find God, it would have to be via Islam, because how am I going to go to a Christian church when they got gay pastors and shit? The Bible says no, and you're just ignoring it. What is this? It's not even a thing. Like, to me, it's a joke of a religion now. I think it's a joke. So if you're gonna bend all your own rules, if you're gonna be tolerant of everything and stand for nothing, then I don't think you have anything.
It's just like people are getting onto the president of Qatar, because he's not allowing gay pride or flags or anything to be shown in the World Cup. Yeah. Right? So what's your opinion on, people expressing their communities, for example?
My opinion is that you're in Qatar.
Yeah.
So
no, but I'm talking about in general though. Yeah. In general. People expressing their happiness for gay pride and stuff like that.
The problem is, and I don't want to come across as homophobic, and I want to get this video taken down either, but the problem is that a lot of these things are not what people think they are. There are people who think so surface level. The people inside the Matrix think surface level. They sit there and think, this is only about accepting what gay people want to do. I don't care what gay people want to do. I'm not homophobic. I don't give a shit what you want to do. It's not about that. What's actually happening is that the New World Order and people who are in charge of the world are using certain agendas to enforce they're using them as a disguise to enforce hidden things. You understand? It's like the Green New Deal. They come along and say, global warming, global warming, global warming. They pretend it's about the planet, but really it's about just raising taxes to the sky, locking you in your house and taking your car away. They don't give a shit about the planet. It's a disguise. So the people who are in charge of the world are using certain agendas, which they don't want you to argue against, to sneak in a bunch of other legislation and a bunch of other rules. And the whole pro-gay acceptance thing is exactly the same. It's nothing to do with gays. The people who are in charge of the world don't care about anyone but themselves. They don't care about you, whether you're gay or straight. They're not interested. What they're interested in doing is controlling the minds of people and affecting the way people operate in a way which is beneficial to them. I don't want to get too political on this podcast and say what they're really doing because the video will get taken down. But anyone who has a brain, who wants to go and find out, you will find out that all this green agenda they're pushing has nothing to do with the environment. All this gay stuff they're pushing has nothing to do with gay people. It's all to do with control. The people who are in charge of the world want more control. If they gave a shit about global warming and rising sea levels, why does every single multimillionaire and billionaire buy a house on the beach? It's the first place they buy their mansion. I thought we're all going to drown next year. Bollocks, bro. It's a lie. It's all a lie. They don't care. But by saying that, now there's carbon credits, carbon limits. You can't drive your car past 8 p.m. because of the environment. You can't eat meat anymore because of the environment. Stay home, eat the bugs, be a slave, be a slave, be a slave. Every single government in the world is interested in control. That's all they've ever wanted. That's all they ever want more of. Governments want control. They want to control their populace. They think of us as sheep. We're cattle to them. They want us to comply. They don't want our individuality. They don't want us to think for ourselves. They want us to just sit there and obey like robots. So every single one of them is slowly inching, day by day, pushing the limits, taking as much control as they can from the people till the people revolt. And if they do it slowly and incrementally, they get away with a lot. And that's what they're doing. And they're all inching towards communism, which is what they want in the end, because communism is the governmental system that allows them the most control over the world. People sit there and go, oh no, the governments don't want communism. The governments want free enterprise because governments want money and governments want you, everyone to be rich and they want people to be wealthy. This is beyond money. The people in charge of the world print the money. They don't care about money. They don't care about economies. They don't care about taxes. All these things are brokey considerations. When you print the money, do you think you give a shit if the economy is good or bad? You print the money. You don't care. What you care about is when you click your fingers, do people obey you? That's what they want. They want power. Power, yeah. That's what it's really about. The whole world is about power. So when someone comes on TV and tells me I'm supposed to believe something, you need to believe this about the planet. You need to believe this about the gays. You need to believe this about this virus. You need to believe this. I sit there and I look at it and go, why do you want me to believe this?
Do you think,
why? It's a lot. And sorry, you got me started now. Sorry, bro. But it's like, why do you want me to believe this? Do you want me to believe this because it's good for me? Or is it because it's good for you? Are the rules made for the benefit of me, or are they made for the benefit of the people who make the rules? And you sit there and you understand that all of it is programming. All of it is a lie. They want you to believe things that are not true, like go to university, get in debt, sit there, learn or get a degree. That they want you to believe all this crap so that you are as enslaved as they can make you. This is all they want. And I understand that. So whenever they come along with anything, this is not about gay people as a whole. Don't give a shit. Any agenda they try and push on me, I know is not for my benefit. I know it. So I reject basically all of it.
I wanted to ask you now, because this is the hot topic, especially in the Muslim community, about your conversion.
Yeah.
So tell us the story, like what happened exactly?
Well, I think a lot of people who've been following me for a while understand that I've been very respectful of Islam for a long time.
Yeah, sure.
I was born in a Christian country. I was raised as a Christian. And I've always been very respectful of Islam. And it's become more and more obvious to me and more pertinent that Islam is the last religion on the planet. When I talk about Islam, because I'm new to it, I'm a little bit careful, right? Because I'm new to it. I'm certainly not a scholar. There's so much I need to learn. I know I'm on a learning journey. I'm not here to sit here and talk scripture. I don't know those things yet. I'm here to learn.
Yeah.
But
and we're here at your assistance.
Thank you, bro. Thank you.
Honestly.
Thank you.
Yeah.
But it's just, for me, it feels like the last religion on earth. I feel like there's no other religion. People say to me, why did you convert? And I said, I don't really feel it as a conversion. It's almost like I knew God was real and now I've become religious. And they say, well, you were religious before. I was like, religious before how? Christian? What does Christian mean? Like, who's not a Christian? You go to Christian nations and everyone says they're a Christian. Look how they live their lives. Go into the average church. Is anyone actually fearful of God? Anybody? No. The girls are out on Saturday night drinking and then they turn up to church because their parents made them. Like, there's no substance to the religion. And also, Islam very closely reflects my personal beliefs. Through my personal life, I've learned that if you don't have standards and you're not a strong person who's prepared to defend his ideas, you'll be crushed.
Yes.
And we look at most religions in the world today, which are not prepared to defend their ideas. What's happened to them? They're just getting crushed. And now we have Christianity as an idea, which has basically said, well, we can't set any firm rules because everyone will just quit. So instead, let's make it so easy to be a Christian that nobody has to put any effort in.
Yeah.
And then accept everybody no matter what. And hopefully we can keep the church doors open. That's not God to me, you know?
Yeah.
God to me is strong. God to me is something to be feared.
Yeah.
God to me is someone that people are afraid to mock.
Yeah.
God to me is someone that you have to go out of your way to prove something to. God to me has red lines.
Yeah.
Like God to me represents the Islamic faith. The Christian God to me, I don't see God. I can't explain. I don't see anything there. So to me, it was the only logical choice in the end.
Alhamdulillah, man. I mean,
I'll take care of her in that way, and she'll take care of me in another way. Why are you pretending that offends you when your relationship with women in your own personal life doesn't even exist? And if it does, it's awful.
I'll tell you what's going to happen now. As we're agreeing and talking now, some people, especially some feminist people that are influenced by feminism within the Muslim community, say, look, this is exactly what we feared. Yeah. He's not holding him to account. He's not speaking to him about the wild statements. Yeah. The truth is, I'll say this: I don't actually feel like I need to judge you because, quite frankly, Allah has already wiped away your sins. Yeah. Any statement that you made before about women or anything that you've done with women before, once again, it's not my business to judge you upon that. Yep. So that should be the Islamic position. However, let's say for the wider community, right? Because at the end of the day, we do want you to kind of not reintegrate, especially not in the matrix. Now, alhamdulillah, you're out of the matrix, let's say, fully out of it. Islam is totally out of the matrix. That's why they hate it so much. Some of the comments that you've made, I haven't got a list of them. What are some of the comments that they accuse you of making, and what is the context of these comments?
Yeah, so the two that they accuse me of most is where I said a woman is a man's property, which is the first one. Yeah. And the second one that they try and get me with is where I said a woman should bear some responsibility for being sexually assaulted. Both of them are massively taken out of context. I'd like to explain them. Right. When I said about a woman being a man's property, I was talking about the idea of biblical marriage at the time, Christian marriage. I was saying that the man walks, the father walks the bride down the aisle, gives her to the groom, she takes his last name, and he is now responsible for protecting and providing for her till death do them part. She joins his family, right? She belongs to him. Oh no! So you're saying she's property? I'm saying she belongs to him.
All right, so it's a semantic issue.
It's a semantic issue, correct?
Yeah. So you're not necessarily saying that he can buy and sell her.
Absolutely not. I'm saying that he is responsible for her, and he must protect and provide for her. That's this one. But I never even said the word property. They said the word property at me.
Really?
Right. So I said that she belongs to him.
Because the exchange I saw was between you and Piers Morgan.
Oh yeah.
And he was just being obnoxious. I don't even know how. You can see the man was insecure.
Yeah.
That's how I psychoanalyze him. I'm not, a psychiatrist, but I think he's just insecure. He felt like he had something to prove. He was, he's of a certain age, a certain weight, a certain disposition, and there's people when they see you and him together, that's enough of a victory for you and enough of a loss for him just to see you two, side by side. But as his face was becoming red like Peppa Pig, and he was getting more and more angry and interjecting every second, he was mentioning these points. This is the only thing that, from my perspective, I felt, okay, maybe he has a point here.
Sure.
But as you've explained it, if you mean by property X, Y, and Z, we don't actually mean property then potentially we say, look, this is not the best wording. Yeah. It's not the best wording.
Absolutely.
And what you didn't mean by that is, she's some kind of commodity and object.
Correct. Absolutely not. In fact, quite the opposite. I was trying to say how important she is and how she must be protected and provided for. Okay. And it was taken completely out of context and weaponized against me. And it's very similar with the other comment of how women should bear some personal responsibility for being sexually assaulted. I'm not saying in 100% of cases that sexual assault couldn't have been prevented. I'm not saying sexual assault should happen. In fact, I'd argue that I'm more strict on the idea of rape than the laws. I think these people should be executed. I think it's disgusting, completely and utterly disgusting. However, I think it is asinine for us as a society to sit here and pretend that if a woman goes out takes drugs with a man she doesn't know, goes to his house without telling her brother or her father or telling anybody, and puts herself in a position of absolute vulnerability that she has zero responsibility. So I'm not. It shouldn't happen to her. Of course. It's disgusting. Yeah, of course. But also, I shouldn't get robbed if I walk down the street with $1 million in the middle of the night. So but it can. So I must think ahead.
What you're effectively saying is that if there are certain situations where the probability of sexual assault for women increase. In fact, for example, the WHO itself, I was looking at, they had this whole, probably the most compendious thing on rape and sexual assault, and they were talking about different countries, and the one thing that they said, which the West has more than other places, is stranger rape. And actually, one of the reasons why could very well be because of this culture of intoxications, of clubbing and these kinds of things. So it increases the probability, I think. It's a very reasonable argument to say, well, this increases the possibility of stranger rape. Now, obviously, they're going to come back and say, but the way you said it,
of course they're going to do it.
It's victim blaming.
But they're going to say it's victim blaming, and they're saying I'm going to be advocating for rape, and they're going to be saying I said it's okay, which is all garbage. It's all nonsense. Yeah. I'm trying to explain to people in a very realistic fashion that we live in a world which is not ideal. We live in a world where everybody understands that stealing is wrong, but some people still steal. This is why we lock our cars and lock our houses. Absolutely. This is why we protect our certain assets and our money. This is why I will not walk down the street with a gold watch in London at 3 a.m. by myself, because I don't want to put myself in a position where there's a higher probability of something bad happening to me. Yeah. And I'm just saying that when it comes to this one particular crime, because it's so heinous, and it is heinous, absolutely, and certainly every perpetrator should face the absolute full punishment from not only the law, but God himself. But they sit and pretend that there's zero personal responsibility involved. And I'm just saying that there are some scenarios, not all, but in some scenarios, the woman has made it so easy for something bad to happen to her. And I'm saying we should teach them not to do that so that we can protect them. And the reason this whole subject came up is because I was talking about if I'm a man and I'm responsible for my woman and I want to protect her, and somehow we got on the subject of rape, and this was on a podcast 3 or 4 years ago. I said, the number one way I can protect my woman besides being beside her is teaching her to make smart decisions when I'm not around and making sure she's smart and doesn't put herself in bad positions. And this feminist was saying, yeah, but people shouldn't rape. I was like, I agree. People shouldn't steal. People shouldn't do a lot of things, but you still have to protect yourself and have some personal responsibility. And the feminist's argument against it was that, no, we need to teach men not to rape. Some asinine, idealistic fairy tale land where we're going to go around and convince every man on earth to never rape again. As if we haven't been trying to convince people not to steal since the dawn of human time. It's stupid.
I think at the base of what you're saying is basically a concern that, look, if you follow this advice, you'll get the best results. It's very, very pragmatic advice.
Absolutely.
But what is being twisted as actually this guy is a misogynist, which, by the way, the definition of they haven't even agreed on.
Correct.
And this guy believes X, Y, and Z, and they're taking you out of context. The problem here is, for example, with rape, actually, interestingly, I was speaking to a lawyer. I'm not sure if the case is still the case in the UK, but I don't think you can actually be convicted of rape if you're a woman to a man. I think only a woman can be convicted.
Which is funny enough. Another thing that was interesting when I was arguing this point, I was arguing it saying, listen, you've made this a gendered argument because you're a feminist. 29% of rape cases in UK are male on male. And I'll say the same thing to a man. Don't go, do drugs, become intoxicated, go back home with someone you don't know, and put yourself in a position to be raped, stabbed, killed, murdered, whatever it is, right? And the feminists who were arguing against me goes, oh, but you don't understand male privilege. You get to walk around safe at night without worry. I was like, listen, my dear, you have no idea what it is to be a man. You have no idea. You think we walk around London in the middle of the night willy-nilly with no concerns? They will kill us for the piece of metal on our wrist. Like, you think we're just walking around thinking doop-de-doo? No. Absolutely not. Yeah. I'd actually argue that in certain scenarios in certain places in the Western world, it's more dangerous to walk alone as a man than a woman. You know, so it's absolutely asinine. They have this idealistic worldview that everything's perfect for men and everything's men's fault, and women have no personal responsibility. And no matter what a woman does, there's no way she could be possibly involved, even 1% her fault at